I had to do this video pre-recorded because I'm waiting a very important phone call from my kid's school, so I don't want to miss it. So I just figured instead of disrupting the live, I would record it, then post it. We can still have the discussion. We can still talk about some of the terms and, you know, why they seem different. So this unit is actually about soul terms. Now, if you've been following my videos, you know that I am an Akashic Realm guide. The Akashic Realm is pretty much like a soul database. So because of that, we are guides of the Akashic Realm are definitely more focused about terminology. It means more to them because it's something that they have to use. It's something they have to implement. It's how they store information appropriately by using the proper terminology. So when I do this and say certain things, I like for people to know what I'm talking about. So I wanted Unit 3 to represent terms. And the reason it's representing terms is so that when we continue with the rest of the videos, you know where I'm coming from when I speak about a certain term, and you can understand what I'm discussing. And I think that's really important because the internet is full of a bunch of different terms. It's full of a bunch of different opinions. Everybody's got their own view, and I respect that and get that. But it's important for everybody to know where I stand and what I see if they are to kind of try to understand the rest of the videos coming forward. So we're going to start with a couple of really big terms. Well, important terms, I should say. Soul group versus soul family. These are two different groups. A soul group is the soul group you were born into. It's kind of like the energetic body that shares your characteristics, your traits, your structures. They have similarities. So if you've watched my previous videos, you might already know that we are born of the stars. Most of us are from planets or stars. As the energy accumulates for a planet or star, as the mass accumulates for a planet or star, it has an energetic counterpart. That energetic counterpart has cosmic DNA from other planets or stars. If we think about the fractioning of other planets or stars as they explode or break, they would send that genetic information to other planets or stars. In many ways, it's like a fertilization process. It's a continuation of energy. So as one destroys itself, the other one starts to collect and accumulate from many fragments of many planets or stars. In this way, this is why we're constantly evolving. When soul group's destruction or decomposition of the planet or star becomes another soul group's evolution, it comes together in these pieces that create a new soul group with new cosmic DNA. And in that way, we have the opportunity to continue evolution. Now, just because a planet or star is destroyed does not mean the soul group is destroyed. It just means the physical component gets destroyed and distributed. The energetic component still exists. That is what we call a dimension. Every planet or star has a physical component and it has a dimensional component. That's the energy accumulated that speaks a certain language, has a certain code, has beings of the same energy body. They have certain themes. Beings of the same dimension they usually share a lot of the same traits. Sometimes they have telepathy within their group, depending if that's a thing. Sometimes they have similar gift structures. Sometimes they have similar evolutionary vibrations. And that's because the soul group evolves together. Another cool thing that happens is sometimes they have the same energetic visual. A fifth dimensional soul can take on any energy, but usually they take on an image that represents their soul group. So their soul group code becomes like their physical apparition, their body that they show, or sometimes those traits, they'll choose bodies that represent that. For example, like they might really love the idea of round faces because round faces remind them of their soul family or their soul group, their home. And in that way, their soul group, they would kind of bring those characteristics down to earth. That is very possible. For example, some soul groups are super masculine. They're just made that way. They're energetically composed from very masculine energy. Some soul groups are very feminine. They're just made that way. They're composed from very feminine energy. So their image would represent that. It would represent what we would consider feminine or masculine. And we might choose bodies that represent that. So we might choose hypermasculine or hyperfeminine bodies. Another example is like some soul groups absolutely love water. They're, you know, they're water beings, or they have a lot of water on their dimension, or, you know, or their planet, or wherever they're originally from. So they're very drawn to it. That would be people who are usually pulled to a coast or a lake or some kind of body of water. They would usually pick many incarnations where they could be around water. So we do pick lives based on our soul's origins. And it says a lot about our personality. It says a lot about our structure and a lot about our gift structure too. So it is valuable information to have. Now, the whole purpose of a merger of a soul group is eventually, when that soul group has discovered itself and they've merged their information with each other, they merge with other soul groups. So sometimes I read people who have multiple soul groups, and that's because it's like traveling. Let's say you're born in the US and you say you want to learn, you've always been drawn to German culture. So you go and you live in Germany and you start picking up some of their characteristics, some of their traits, some of their mannerisms. It's exactly the same way. We can be born in a place and decide to spend time in a different dimension with different beings and to learn, to experience, like travel, and it can become a part of our energy because of it. This brings me to one of my next terms, subconscious database versus conscious database. Our conscious database is our physical life's experiences. It is our childhood, our current life trauma, our memories, the way our parents raised us. It's our education at school. It's what we were taught in this life. That's our conscious database. Now, we tap into that with every decision we make. Every decision is based off that training and that implementation. Usually what people consider is an awakening is the understanding of the subconscious database, is the understanding that we are more than what we are trained to be in this life. We tap into that through meditation, by consciously accessing that database, and by really clearing and healing. Clearing and healing allows us to hear that voice a lot clearer because there's less obstructions here in this physical life through our conscious memory or our traumas. So for example, if we have a lot of traumas in this life, it may be very hard to hear our subconscious database because we simply aren't connected. We are distracted. It's a lot of noise, so we can't get past it. Healing helps kind of hush that noise, and then we can move on and now listen to our subconscious database. I call it a subconscious database because the only information you have in your subconscious database is information you have physically experienced through existing incarnations and being present. So your subconscious database is a collection of your past experiences. And in that way, even your subconscious mind is limited to your experiences, but it's a lot more vast than our current database or our conscious database. So it's very different, and this is why a lot of people have a lot of disagreements, because one person is using their subconscious database to connect to their soul group that's very different from somebody else's soul group. And in that way, they might be like, well, that's untrue. And then this person's like, well, that's untrue. But in reality, they're both very true. You're talking about your truth and your truth. Your subconscious database and your subconscious database, you have different soul groups. You have different soul structures. You have different origins. And we are still all one. Yes, that is absolutely true. Our soul groups, like I said, are all part of universal consciousness. Our universe is one collective conscious that kind of manages all the soul groups together. So it's kind of just like, I call it like the sacred geometry of life. Our bodies, we might have millions of bodies here in, where I live in the United States of America, but we are still the United States of America. And this collection of countries and groups of people create a world. So we still have to function together. We are still on the same globe. We are still working in a unison, or hopefully working in unison. Our souls are very much the same way. We do have to function in unison. We do work in cooperation and collaboration. We do all merge into one. Eventually, the goal is that we've learned so much about each other that we can all consider ourselves the same entity, the same one, because we have all of that information, we've experienced it all, and now we're at a place where we're simply all knowing, and in that place we are one. So that really still is the point, and that is still very true. A lot of people look at soul groups as a division and a point of separation, but that's only because that's what they've experienced, division and separation, and they're associating that with their soul group. But we all merge eventually. That is the goal. So like I said, a lot of people have multiple soul groups within their cosmic DNA or their soul structure, and it's something that can be actually traced and found, and it would show up in their characteristics. So soul family. Now, soul family is very different. When we choose to incarnate, whether that's on Earth or another planet or whatever's going on, when we choose to have a physical experience in a physical body, our soul incarnates into a body. So we have a merger. It's like buying a car. We have a merger with a being and a car. We have a merger with a being, a soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, and a vehicle, the physical body being a vehicle of that planet or star. And it's usually considered what we call a merger. You're using in a body composed of that planet's energy. It's a vessel, but it's paying tribute to that planet because you're supposed to take care of that vessel. And if you don't take care of that vessel, obviously it has consequences because you die, your vessel dies. Let's say, we eat a bunch of garbage, we never protect ourselves, we never learn anything, then we would put ourselves in danger naturally and statistically, and we'd be more in danger to die and lose that vessel. So it's kind of like a natural lesson in consequence. Either learn about this planet, learn how to take care of your body, learn how to take care of that fragment of me, your body, because or you are in pain because that's how it works. Your body is made of earth, here on earth. So anything that's good for your body will be good for earth. So paying tribute and respect to your body, learning about your body, learning about your health, learning about your evolution, your mental state, going to school, evolving yourself physically is paying tribute to earth. So that is kind of like the agreement that we make. We say, well, I will use that vessel. I will learn about taking care of myself as a respect to the vessel you have given me. And we make that merger to evolve, to experience Earth in a different way. So many times what we do is it's kind of like our graduating class, our soul family. They're a group of people we decide to continuously reincarnate with, to work out karma, to teach each other lessons, to help guide each other, to kind of feed off each other back and forth. You play this life for me, I'll play this life for you, you be this person for me, then I'll return the favor to you, and we go back and forth, because if you're working together, then a lot of the times your karma is very similar. So if you have a lesson to learn because of this other lesson, then usually they're the best person to teach you. Now, these people don't have to be of your soul group. They could be from anywhere, but we have a very strong connection to them because we would constantly incarnate and travel with them over and over and over again. So sometimes our connection to them is much stronger than our connection to even our soul group. So again, it's kind of like your graduating family. They don't have to be of the same soul group, but they are usually your family, your friends, your partners, and they follow you from life to life to life. So that's what we mean when we say soul family, as opposed to soul group. Your soul group is like your place of origins. Your soul family are the people you travel with or choose to travel with constantly. So now we talk about a realm. So we talked about a dimension. A dimension is the energetic component to a planet or star. It is our creator. It is what I call a soul group architect. The soul group architect accumulates, they accumulate their power through the accumulation of a mass and energy in space that happens naturally as, energy shifts through space. It would collect. This is the same way that a star or planet is born scientifically, but then we just have to imagine the energetic component to it. So all that energy eventually accumulates and gets strong enough to create pretty much a being, an entity of its own, and it takes on this conscious energy, this conscious mind, and this mind begins to create a soul group in its image, architect a group in its image. It uses the DNA, the cosmic DNA from all these other fragments that have been accumulated over time, and begins to create a soul group in its image. So this dimension is a world, an energetic world on top of a physical world. So it's the energetic component. Now, not all physical components are layered with life. That depends on the chemistry and the biology and a whole bunch of other stuff. Not all planets can sustain life. So sometimes it's just the physical component of matter, whether it be toxic or non-toxic, and then the energy, the energetic dimension. Energetic dimensions can resemble the physical dimension, but they can also be amazingly gorgeous. They could be a place of, there's so many of them, it's hard to really explain a specific one, but they can be usually when we astral travel, we visit a dimensional location, and those are almost like a dream state because they're so beautiful that it's almost shocking that you're in such a beautiful place. It's what a lot of people call heaven. Heaven would be a dimension. And it's, that's just one specifically, and it is very, bright, very white, very pastel, that's just the way that they've created that dimension. It's the way their soul group feels comfortable expressing themselves. It's a part of their soul group's identity. So they create that image to represent all of it. So the soul group architect will continue creating the soul group and continue developing that particular dimension. So it becomes a world of its own. There's buildings, there's everything needed to sustain life and keep people busy and keep people to store information. Everything they need is created in that dimension. Just like here on Earth, if we really think about the physical component, it's just the same but energetic. So Earth has one too. Earth has an energetic layer and it has a physical layer. So the energetic layer is Earth's dimension, the physical layer is our life. They look very different, but they're layered above top of each other, and they're part of the same energy source. So a realm, the difference between a dimension and a realm is made specifically by beings who have some kind of need. So for example, the Akashic realm. The Akashic realm is it's like a whole planet in itself, but it was made specifically by soul groups who felt the need to get together and create a place to store soul level information. So it's like saying that, yes, this is our world, but then we're going to create this world where everyone can gather, like a neutral space. So everybody would get together and create, give energy to create this realm that has no real origins except for the fact that it was created through need. So that's the difference. The Akashic realm is where we all go before we incarnate on Earth. We go, there's buildings for life planning. People have had visions of it. There's rooms where you view your life, that you see your soul group, you see your family. There's a lot of meetings held there because it's a common ground for a lot of different soul groups. It's not the only realm of its kind. There are multiple, but it's one of the major ones we use for here on Earth, and it's one of the major ones in our universe here. So it is one that we access a lot. Everybody has, and it has all of our soul records. It has Earth's history. It has the history of soul groups in our universe and sometimes out of our universe. If they have merged to our universe through the multiverse, that is a thing, then they would give us the information that they've brought with them, and we would store it in the Akashic realm because they have now become a part of this energy. So we must record that. The reason we record it is because information was getting lost. There are soul groups that happen to be go rogue or attack or do negative things, and in that way they're actually transferred to a different location. It's the opposite, equal and opposite. And that's because that's the place of chaos and destruction. Here is the place of master merger. So essentially we keep the records because they don't always stay present. There are soul groups that have been destroyed. By destroyed, their energy is always recycled and reaccumulated. So energy is never really destroyed, but the soul group itself was taken apart pretty much to be recycled. And in that way, we can keep the information from that too, so that we're not losing information. And it does, you know, everybody says like this 50 and this energy doesn't require organization, but it does. It also requires protection. If we have a place where all of the souls, programs, past lives, gifts, energy, if all of that is stored, then it can actually be dangerous in the wrong hands. Therefore, it's highly protected, which is why not a lot of people have access to Akashic records. They have access to their own record, but not access to other people's records. So that is the difference there. A lot of people will be like, well, I access my own records, so I'm an Akashic Realm reader. That is not accurate. Sometimes our spirit guides will access the proper information for us, but it means that a lot of information is unavailable because they will be denied information a lot of times because the person might be accessing it without integrity. They might be accessing it for negative use. And it might just be too complicated for them to understand or digest. If the person cannot digest the information coming forward, then they would put a block to it because it becomes kind of dangerous. So there's a lot of protection standards. There's a lot of things that happen there. There's a lot that goes on, but we all have access to the pre-birth planning, to our personal records, to our past lives, to our subconscious database. There's a lot we can access through this knowing and, you know, grasping where we're going. The reason why sometimes in meditation we get this, you know, the seventh dimension or something like that is because we have this process of planes. This energetic plane is like a linear vibrational spectrum. It's just the best way to explain it. So I'll explain. Every dimension or realm of the same vibration would be considered a dimension or realm of this particular plane. Like, let's say it's the first, second, third, 23rd. So they would all be considered the realm in the 12th dimension. Sometimes their names are so complicated that we can't verbalize that, so they just put a number to it and they say stick to that. But there could be more than one dimension on a plane. There could be millions, billions, trillions, infinite amounts. So when you're saying like a realm on the, you know, the fifth plane or a dimension on the fifth plane, you're actually talking about that dimension's vibration. So they're evolutionary measurements. So here we have the barrier. The barrier is what I call 0.0. And it's very much like the number line. We can go into negatives and we can go into positives. The only thing, the negative doesn't mean negative. Positive doesn't mean positive. It doesn't mean these people are great for you and these people are bad for you. It just means that there's two components to every energy. There's always going to be a positive polarity and a negative polarity because that's what keeps energy constant. That's what constantly shifts energy back and forth. This polarity, this tug and pull, this back and forth. It's balance. It's the yin and the yang. It's a necessary aspect of continuous infinite energy that we have both polarities. So we do have the barrier though. The reason for the barrier is because one side is chaos and destruction. That is how they function. It is not a place of judgment or criticism. It's like wolves. Wolves eat animals. They can be kind of destructive sometimes, but they could also be sweet and kind. It's just their nature. And nobody gets thrown there for punishment. You have to resonate with that energy. So you would take so many lives in destruction and chaos that eventually your energy becomes one with, you know, -1 plane or -2 plane or -8 plane. So you just resonate with that energy, and then your energy naturally aligns to the plane that resonates back. So you attract what you are, and that is normal. As we ascend, we raise our energy. Now, what happens on a global scale is when we're ascending on a global scale, all of us ascending, changing, raising our vibration, evolving, the earth actually is charging this so that they can ascend too. So the planet needs all of us kind of like on the same page, and then the planet ascends its own energy, but it happens far less frequently than people, because if we think about our own energetic body, it can be very small. So it's almost like we charge all this energy and then eventually the world gets a kick, and now the world can shift planes too. So it is a thing that happens. We do move planes, we do shift our vibration. It's usually like we just had a major one. It's something everybody's aligned to and feels. People all over the place are feel it. We have mini waves, and then we have actual shock waves. It's just different. In every plane, there are billions of transfer stations. We essentially are, you know, shift by shift by shift. We take on little jobs, and then eventually we make this big leap. So it does take a lot of work. I would say maybe hundreds or thousands of years of work just to get one planetary ascension, because most of the time we're not on the same page. And Earth, it can be a very violent place. So that would descend the vibration. And yes, we can descend. And it's not like one life of bad decisions would throw you into the equal and opposite. It doesn't work like that at all. Somebody would have to have lifetimes, thousands of years of choosing negative things, of being destructive, killing, murder, rape. They would have to have so many lifetimes of that it's pretty much taken over their whole entire soul structure, not just their current incarnation, but their whole structure, their higher self. And eventually they would simply resonate with the other side. So to them, it wouldn't even be a punishment. It'd be like going home. And that's, like I said, it's no place of judgment. It's just the law of energy. You know, you attract what you are, and that's what you would feel comfortable in. So a portal is an actual energetic door. So we have portals everywhere. Mediums can open portals to other dimensions and pull in people who have already crossed over. That is a rare gift. Most people call a lot of things medium that are not actually medium. Mediums have to have a portal. They usually have one around their crown. And when they connect to a person, they would call that person in from their home dimension. It means they've already crossed over. Sometimes mediums don't see souls stuck here on Earth. And those would be called hauntings. They don't see souls stuck between the veils of the dimensions, lingering and wandering on Earth. A lot of spirits don't even know that they're here. A lot of your spirit team might not even know that they're here. And the reason is because I call it like being stuck between the couch cushion. You're not technically connected home. You're not technically connected to Earth. So there's a lot of gray space there. And the only way to see those souls is to have the ability to see hauntings. That's usually a third eye gift as opposed to a medium, which is a crown gift. So they're different. A medium will actually open a portal. It's a door, and they will connect to any dimension or realm, and they will call spirit through. Most shaman have that gift structure. They're called interdimensional travelers, really, in soul language. But here on Earth, in the US, they're usually called shaman. So it's a gift that to open portals. Other ways portals get opened are through two really charged points. So if this dimension is layering this dimension, and there's a huge slur of activity on this side, but there's also a lot of activity on this side, it might create an energetic connection, and that energetic might create a door. And then now you have a portal from this dimension to this dimension, which means that things can come through it. Usually it's negative because we are fairly high vibration. Sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it can be negative, but usually we have issues with negative energy coming through. They kind of just wait at all the doors. Like they want to come to Earth because Earth allows them a lot of destruction, because we don't function in that way, so they get a bigger rise out of us. So they do like to inhabit Earth, but they only do so by sneaking in through portals or people or being invited. And by they, I just mean people of the other side of the barrier, beings of the other side of the barrier. Some people call them negative entities, some people call them demonic entities. They have a million names, and they're just called entities of the other side of the barrier. And that's complicated to say. So sometimes I myself just say demonic. And if they're of the first plane, they're less aggressive. And if they're of the 10th plane, they are incredibly violent, and it can be a very scary experience. So there are different soul groups, even on that side of the barrier, different characteristics, qualities, different images, different systems of destruction. Some of them are far more sinister than others. they vary. They're not all the same either. So they do sneak in because the Akashic realm and Grand Council does not actually allow those incarnations because it doesn't make sense to our collective mission. Our collective mission is master merger. We are trying to evolve. We are trying to merger. We are trying to work through compassion. Everything else is looked at as an intrusion to that process. So they say, well, no, this is not our process. You're just trying to destroy that. You can destroy this. And they, they kind of get sent back home. So we don't intentionally allow it because we simply don't have the same goals. And what happens when you stick those two polarities together is they both cease to exist because they destroy everything on the planet and the planet ceases to exist. The humans cease to exist and then there's nothing else to feed off of and then they cease to exist. So it's kind of like protection from both places that we have a system of order because that system of order says we can both be protected. You can live on, we can live on. And that is simply, if we look at it as energy, energy would do the same thing. You know, if you force these energies to coexist in the same exact space at the same time, there's like an internal war and struggle the whole time. And eventually it just causes problems. So the system of order is made for protection from both sides. They live on and we live on. Let's see. Oh, so portals. Another thing that can open portals are specific gifts, but also the fae or fairies or elementals, whatever people call them. They're actually dimensional workers of earth. They're of the elements. I call them elementals. My soul team calls them elementals. The Akashic realm calls them elementals, but through every culture they have their own name and every culture explains them differently. They can be quite mischievous. They do like causing a ruckus and starting problems, but it's kind of like, I look at them as little children. They're kind of like mischief workers, and it's just because they're bored. They like to have jobs. So sometimes if you leave them around, these are also what people see as orbs as photos. So orbs are actually the spirit version of elementals. Like I said, there's one of every element: earth, water, wind, fire, and spirit. And they are energies of Earth's dimension, but they look like these little fairies, these elementals. And when we catch them on camera, they look like little orbs. But spirit orbs are white, and the other elementals are of their element color. So usually we don't catch wind because it usually looks like a clear orb, but sometimes they can look really big, so you could just kind of see the lines of the orb, but not the actual color. But there have been people who have seen, you know, the red and orange and yellow for the fire, the blue for water, or red or sometimes it's like red or brown for earth. It really depends. Sometimes green. I see them as green and earth and orange for fire, and like bluish for water, and then clear for wind. They just kind of are fast. It's like you feel them, they buzz. And then there's the spirit elementals, which are just orbs. Now we usually catch them on camera, which I think is really fun because those are orbs. When you take a photo and you see people with the gift to connect to elementals, they have orbs in like every single one of their pictures. And it's interesting because you could even go on Zillow or any like house selling app, and you can look at houses where people have lived there that had elemental gifts because they left all these portals open, and you can see them in the photos, but also you see all the orbs in every single photo that they took. So they left them all there, which is kind of sad. And then you have to get somebody to come in and clear it up, or a lot of things go missing. They think they have a haunting, but they don't. It's just a bunch of little elementals bored because their master kind of left them and they don't know what to do with themselves. But those are, they love creating portals, and that can be a little bit dangerous. So like a lot of cultures and religions and beliefs will tell you not to leave, not to even commune with the fae or the fairies, and that's because they can leave a bunch of dimensional portals open, and things can kind of leak through your home. You can get intrusions, you can get hauntings, you can get a lot of other energies that come through because of it, but you just have to give them a job, and you have to be aware of the portals, and you have to close the portals, and you have to manage the energy. So you have to take control. It's like having a house full of kids with no control and no rules. They do kind of create mischief and get themselves in trouble. It's very similar to that. It doesn't make them bad. They are they can be very, very helpful. They're very healing, very kind, very compassionate. They can be a lot of really beautiful things too. Let's see. Old soul. This is a term I'm talking about because a lot of people use the term old soul. But I'm also going to discuss time, and I'm also going to discuss past lives in this because it's all associated. So time. Time is a very physical illusion. It's about our mental structure. Our mind processes information in linear form. So we have an end and a beginning. We have a process. We have first, next, last. We have a linear structure because our brain likes to process information in linear form. We need a beginning, middle, and end so that we can create a story, so that we can store memory, so that we can feel like we have some kind of linear process. A lot of our gifts are not actually in linear form, meaning that it's very hard for us gifted to tell timelines, to say, well, you know, this is of this time frame or this time frame. We kind of just look at the environment. Well, there's this kind of building, there's not paved roads, there's this place on the map, and I feel like because of all this, it must be in the 1900s or so, you know, around that time, because we're not looking at life from a linear form. We are literally traveling back through time, looking at all existence of time in a place that resonates with you specifically in one of your experiences. So it's not really like looking at a past life, it's looking at a current experience of you that's currently affecting you in this life. So there is no time to it. We kind of remove the idea of time so that we can see all. Because the soul sees all. The soul is all. Our higher self stays in our home dimension, even if we are incarnated here on earth. What incarnates is a fragment of our higher self. So if this is our higher self, we have a fragment, a fragment, a fragment, all existing at the same time. We can have up to 1,000 of these at the same time. That's why when you connect to your higher self has the wisdom of thousands of lives, because it's literally experiencing all that at the same time. So if you have a trauma here, what happens is you can search through higher self, through your records, turn out in this life, figure out what the traumas were, and experience that all here at this time. Because time truly doesn't exist. Now, when we look at Earth, all Earth is such a small fragment of that existence, of that experience, that even to measure time at soul level would be like one Mississippi done. So to them, it makes no sense really to measure time. But because humans do learn in linear form, they have to work with us. So sometimes they will look down and be like, well, understand this came first because it will help you manage this. So they can speak to us in terms of linear learning. You know, this occurred because this and this is all related. So kind of they're just giving us a string of connected events so that we can heal the string of connected events at the same time. But it was created as connected events, not as a linear structure. But we're seeing it as linear. Einstein did tons of experiments with this because he realized that time was just not the same. When you left Earth, he did a whole bunch of experiments with it. And it was a really fascinating thing to see because he understood a lot of this before a lot of people would even comprehend the idea that time was simply a human illusion based on the fact that we only understand things in linear form. So when you begin to connect to the soul, you'll see that you're all of a sudden experiencing things. We astral travel, we're experiencing our past lives like if they were today. I call my past life viewing time traveling because it really does feel like that. All of a sudden I'm seeing the world completely as it was at a different time or location, and it feels like time traveling to my physical mind. But my soul knows that I'm just experiencing a different reality at a different time of Earth, to understand and help people move through it. So because there is no time, there really is no such thing as age or old soul. It just, the term doesn't exist at soul level. What we call is, we look at soul's vibration and soul's experience. So a soul's vibration or a soul's database would tell us how much experience that soul has had. Let's say we're talking to a soul that has already merged with 6 other soul groups. Then we know that that soul has been experiencing a lot and has moved through. So we can only experience through actually being present. So it means that the soul moved from this dimension to this dimension to this dimension to this dimension to that one, and is now evolved enough. So we would consider that old soul because we're looking at a spectrum of evolution and merger that would seem ancient in a way compared to a lot of other people who are still in their first soul group merger. So we're taking our human understanding and saying, well, that must be old. But there really is no time. So they just look at it, like I said, we have a lot of words here on earth that kind of judge and limit us in ways that spirit does not. They would just look at a soul and say they have experienced a lot. And they don't look at it as a negative thing or a positive thing. They just understand that to carry that much energy or that much information means that you have experience. So it's not about ego, it's not about judgment, it's not about I'm better than you, it's just about the information they collect, the information visible in their energetic field. Starseed. A lot of people love this term. As we talked about earlier, starseed just means of the stars, and as I talked about earlier, everybody is of a star or planet. So starseed is actually usually means everyone. A lot of people like to call starseed a soul. It's not a soul group specifically. It's just everybody. Now, Earth does have its own dimension and its own soul group. If anything, everybody outside of Earth would be considered a starseed, and people of Earth would be considered earthly beings. So that's the only difference there, really. So that's what that term really means. Past lives, like we mentioned earlier, we kind of clumped that all together. There's really no such thing as past lives. Technically, we're all existing at the same time. So it's really just lives. But we use the word past, present, and future to work with our functional brain to tell us, you know, this was this time frame, this was this time frame, that was that time frame. So it's so level, they don't really use that term, but here we do because we understand it that way. So it's interesting. I just thought it would be fun to talk about that one. And then we already talked about subconscious and conscious database. And that's through experience. So we only know what we have experienced. We only carry that information with us. So our soul is not technically all-knowing. It is really advanced compared to our physical mindset. Because again, our physical mind is limited to this lifetime, this experience, our raising, our educational limitation, whatever it is we experience in this life. And our subconscious database is connected to our soul's experiences, which we all have millions of those, sometimes trillions of those. So it's definitely a vast database. And because of that, most people think it all-knowing. And that's what puts us in a place of ego. We tend to like fight each other about it. Well, no, this is true. No, that's true. No, this is true. And in reality, it could all be true. It can all be very true. But our experiences differ from one soul to the next because we all do have different origins and all have different experiences. It's like expecting your life in United States to be exactly like somebody's life in Germany, and it's never going to align. We were just raised differently, different cultures, different understandings. It's okay to say, I understand and recognize your truth, and I had a very different truth growing up. It's simply happens all the time. So that's actually why I share. This is why I teach. This is why I take the time to do this for free all the time, because I truly believe that understanding these things will help us all get to the same point where we're not fighting, where we're not arguing, where we're not disrespecting, where we can hear somebody's truth and be more open-minded. But also understanding these terms helps us digest information coming in from our higher self. So a lot of people will get one of these terms and they don't understand what it means, and then that can lead them down a place of kind of, I call it like the place of imagination, because they take a term that they're not sure what means and then they kind of just tread that in their own imagination and they Google it and they get all this false information and they keep going down that road, and then all of a sudden they're way left and they don't know where they are or what it meant or what it was supposed to deliver for them. And then now at that place we get to a place where we're so kind of like, we're so distracted with that we don't focus on the next message coming through or the next step or the next space of evolution. So it really does help us. I use the terms to help us evolve, not to help us stay limited. And I think that's important because a lot of people are like, well, the terms don't matter, just evolve and do right. Well, that's very hard if you don't know where to direct your energy. If you don't know what it means, if you don't know how to digest it, if you don't know how to take that direction, it's very hard to evolve from it. So that's why I share terms. It's not a form of limitation. It's not a form of judgment. It's not a form of labeling and boxing things up in neat little piles. It's understanding so that we can all individually evolve and meet our goals, so that we could merge once again, so that we can be one once again, so we can stop fighting, so we can stop arguing with each other. We can realize we're all kind of on the same page, on the same mission. And yes, your truth may be different from my truth, but it doesn't mean it's not true. So anyways, please ask questions. I've been trying to do these live, but today I just couldn't do them live because I was nervous I would get an interruption. I am waiting for an important phone call. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and please ask questions if you have any. I really look forward to it. If you have any other terms you really wanted to know about, I'll discuss what I believe it means, or if I've used it through the Akashic realm and what they decide that it means, or what they mean when they use that term. Our soul group connection does sometimes define our terminology. Just like I said, just like here on Earth, even English from America is very different than English in England. So it's very, just like that at soul level, your soul group might use a term very specifically that other people use differently. And in that case, my soul group, my spirit team actually interprets that for me. So I can tell what people are talking about, even if it's not like universal language. It might be very specific to your soul group. So if that's the case too, then I can still help find clarity somehow and explain what that means in a different way, or a more universal terminology. That way you can do your research, you can evolve, you can use the terms appropriately and change in your life, and be able to take the direction from your spirit team. So again, thank you so much for listening. I'm Jasenia, and I love posting these, so I hope you enjoyed it.